In this video, I'm going to be touching on the most influential book that has had a positive impact on my life and how it has changed my life for the better. So I like to read around a book a week. Ideally, I want to be reading a book a day, but I do have some heavy books that I'm reading right now and I'm trying to retain for my business. But that aside, I believe I've read up to 40 to 50 books. Now, that may not be a lot in comparison to, let's say, a Warren Buffett who reads a book a day, but I still have read a fair amount of books and books that are highly acclaimed and highly critiqued. And so this book, I'm going to give some examples on how its aspects within that I've been able to put forward has positively benefited me. So number one, and this one has stuck for me for, I believe this has been over a year. This was last summer. It's October as I'm making this video. So this was around 15 months ago, right? So well over a year. One of the things within the book, and as I say this, a lot of you are probably going to know what book I'm talking about, but they preface on how powerful a smile is and how much that you should smile. So I remember reading this book in summer of last year, and I was going to play pickleball in my town with, pickleball is historically an older crowd, and I remember that there was this old lady that pulled up in front of me as I was waiting for people to show up to the tennis court, and as soon as she stepped out, I put on the biggest genuine smile that I could and I waved at her. And I remember the look that she gave. She almost started laughing. And this wasn't like a laugh that was making fun of me. This wasn't a laugh that was, harboring any disintent. But it was a true, genuine laugh and smile of just pure joy, right? Like having that smile and seeing that effect that smile had on that lady, something I will never forget. And that's just one of the countless things within that book that leave a positive impact. Now, another thing, and this has secured me one of my best business partners that I have to date. So one thing that it talks about in that book is basically putting other people's interests above your own. So at the end of the day, if you're talking with someone and they have an interest that they're talking about, if you talk to them about their interest, they're going to be so much more likely and they're going to have so much more of a better time talking to you than if you just started rambling on about yourself. Now, my business partner I have now, I want to preface, like, I wasn't just doing this just so that I could, gain positive, work and people going forward. But truthfully, I just live by these principles and I've been living by these principles. And he's even said himself that it was for that reason, and it was for reasons that I read in this book, that he liked me so much and that we are friends today. Now, there are countless other examples of this, and I can't even name all of them. There's probably on the daily stuff that I talk about. Another thing too, I was talking to someone, they were into tattooing, right? They were tattoo artists. You don't meet tattoo artists, every single day. But I started talking to them about it. I'm like, yeah, how's that going for you? Stuff like that. And when I tell you that they love talking to me about that, they talked to me for like 30, 45 minutes just about tattooing. To be honest, I couldn't really care about tattooing. But guess what? They became so, interested in what I had to say that they talked to me and they like me from now on, right? Like they never... Like every time I see them, they're always joyous to see me. I'm joyous to see them too. But at the end of the day, that's just some of the positive impacts that this book has had on my life. Now, before I show you this book, I want to relate to business as well. So business, I run an AI agency. It's B2B, so I'm dealing with people all the time. And this book is structured around people and around basically how to deal with people and how to win friends. I don't want to expose the title very soon, but I'm sure most of you know what book I am talking about. But when I'm on sales calls and when I'm texting people, when I'm talking to people, I have all of these aspects in the back of my mind when I'm doing this. And I have so much more success when I employ these than I would if I just blindly started talking with no direction, no framework, no guidance to obviously, put people through the proper process that gets them to see the value of our product and our business and for us to give a good pitch at the end of the day. So that they have a good idea on what they're doing. So now I'm gonna show the book, and I'm sure if you guys are entrepreneurs, if you guys have read any books in the self-improvement space, you're going to know what book I'm talking about. But it's How to Win Friends and Influence People. Now, this is by far the most influential book I've ever had in my life. You know who else he said that this is the most influential book that he's ever read in his life? Warren Buffett or Charlie Munger? I think it was Warren Buffett. But to put that into perspective, Warren Buffett reads for 8 hours a day sometimes, right? He reads a book a day. He reads more than a book a day. He's 90 years old. He's probably read over 10,000 books in his lifetime. And this book right here, How to Win Friends and Influence People, has been the most beneficial for him. Now, if you're not going to listen to what I have to say, listen to what listen to what Warren Buffett has to say, right? One of the most rich men in the world, probably has been one of the richest men in the world at one point. But there's so much crazy stuff within here that you wouldn't even think of doing. But as you realize it, it makes so much sense. I was talking to my business partner about this the other day, and I was rambling on for like 30 minutes. And that's when I knew, like, I have to make a video on this, because this book has changed my life for the better. If I have not read this book, I don't think I would be anywhere near where I am now. Now, I'm just going to read you some of the aspects within this book, but I highly recommend. This is like $15 on Amazon. This will be one of the best $15 you guys will ever invest in your life, at least from my perspective. And I'm sure, Warren Buffett can vouch for me as well. But for example, and I'll touch on one of the very first things that he says. So, let's see here. So right here, if you want to gather honey, don't kick over a beehive. Now, I've summarized this and I've taken so many notes. Like, this is for every single page, just because there's so much value. There's so much insane value in all this book. But basically what this means is never criticize someone, right? At the end of the day, if you want them to understand what you're saying, if you want them to understand the weight of something that you said, don't criticize them, right? Speak well of others. I will speak ill of no man, right? That's a quote. We as humans are creatures of emotion, not creatures of logic, right? So you have to keep that in mind whenever you're talking to someone. And that's good for understanding why people do certain things too, right? If someone gets mad at you, you can understand, okay, that's our human nature. And you're not going to be more sour within that. And try to understand why they do something, right? So let's say someone does something that in your eyes, you're saying, why would you ever do that, right? Like, you're just scratching your head. Ask yourself, why is this person doing that? And at the end of the day, I'm not going to do a recap of this. I just wanted to say how powerful this book has been and how much of a positive impact this has left on my life. Now, really, if you want to be any sort of successful online, if you want to be any sort of successful within any of your endeavors in life, you have to read this book. You cannot go throughout your life without reading the principles inside of this book. I'm not sure who said it, but it is a quote in here. Not a quote, but it's an aspect within here. But basically, they say that I just saw the quote, and I'll show this to the camera. So, about 15% of one's financial success is due to one's technical knowledge, and around 85% is due to skill in human engineering, to personality and ability to lead people. Now, this is Dale Carnegie. Dale Carnegie, you search him up. He's extremely influential, extremely well known, the author of that book. But that just puts it into perspective for you. And I'm telling you from my experience, and I guarantee anyone that you talk to who's had a semi-successful career will all say the same thing. At the end of the day, 85% of your success, 85% of your and my success comes down to human engineering. Well, not necessarily human engineering, that sounds bad, but just understanding people and understanding what to say and when to say it. Now, one example before I want to close this out, again, I'm just trying to document my life. I'm just trying to, talk about my beliefs, talk about everything that I have to talk about, and just build a personal brand and build a positive reputation off of that. But one thing for you guys, right? I know a lot of my friends who watch me at this point, I don't have much of a following. I will soon, though. Fingers crossed. Well, I'm confident that I will, but I don't want to sound cocky about it. But I know a lot of my friends, right? One example of this, job interviews. I believe that I got my 2 jobs, right? I just graduated high school and I've had 2 jobs afterwards. I do with 100% conviction think that the only reason I got those 2 jobs was because I killed it in the interviews. I knew what to say. It also talks about interviewing in here, right? I believe a quote is, I would rather walk outside the interviewer's office for 2 hours kicking rocks before thinking about what they wanted to hear. So basically, you're going in and these people are looking at you to obviously be an asset for their company. If you don't think, what are they looking at for me to be an asset, and you don't center that around your responses, you're going to be way more handicapped than if you did and you had that top of mind with everything that you were saying. So that's just one area. I 100% think that the only reason I got those 2 jobs that I got was because of that. And that's just the power of that. And one thing too, you're going to be dealing with people every single day, right? This isn't like Mongolian throat singing, right? You're probably never going to be immersed in Mongolian throat singing unless it's by yourself or, once in a lifetime. But you're dealing with people every single day. So the applications within there are so easy to practice, are so easy to learn and to really fine tune. And that skill is going to prove to be one of the best skills that you will ever have. And don't just take it from me. I guarantee any successful person will say the same thing. Mark Zuckerberg, the first thing he studied before he dropped out of university to obviously start Facebook was psychology, right? And everyone else, 85% of billionaires, I believe it is, start in sales. Why? Right? It all comes down to human behavior. It all comes down to understanding people, understanding what to say, how to say it, how to structure it. And at the end of the day, you will become so much more successful. So that's my video. I won't ramble on for too much longer. But if you're an entrepreneur, if you want to have any success in your life, you don't have to be an entrepreneur, read this book. This is going to be one of the most practical, one of the most best books you will ever read in your entire life. And I will take you guys up on a bet. If any of you actually read this book, if any of you buy this and read it top to front and truly look at the applications with an open mind and come back to me and say, Liam, this was not worth my time. Liam, this book did not do what you said it would do, I will give you $100. And I'm not kidding when I say this. DM me. I will give you $100 if you guys did not see value outside of that book. That is how confident I am. Soon maybe I'll up that $2,000, right? When I'm making money. But all jokes aside, one of the most influential books I've ever read, one of the most influential books that has ever been produced, in this modern future. With all that being said, won't ramble on anymore. Thank you guys for watching. If you guys want to follow my journey, I'm posting every single day. I would appreciate a follow, appreciate a subscribe so much. If you guys want to follow me on Instagram, where I post daily on my AI agency journey, I'll link that in the description below. But with all that being said, thank you guys for watching. I hope to see you in the next one. And above all, stay wise.